Hello, 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 hello. I am in my home studio in Eagan, Minnesota. That is unfortunately relevant because my dog may or may not bark through this. I'm hoping he's not. I'm hoping he's outside so he doesn't bother us today. But if you wouldn't mind going into the chat pane and letting us know where you're coming from. So, wow, we have people from all over the world. We've got people from Cleveland. We've got people from Phoenix. We've got people from up north in Minnesota, and Martin is from Plymouth. So cool. And can you guys hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Thank you for letting me know that you can hear correctly. So as you can see, you have this chat pane available to you. If you have a question and you would like me to answer it, please feel free and put it in the chat pane. I am monitoring the chat pane as I'm talking. There's about a 5-second delay, but I should be able to stop and answer any question you might have. So thanks again for joining us, and let's go ahead and get started. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down into 3 categories. Number one, what we're going to do. Number one, the importance of email, why this is even more crucial today more than even 6 weeks ago. Second, how to develop an inbound email strategy. How can we use email most effectively and put ourselves in the right position to cut through the noise. And then third, we're going to talk about email deliverability. Just because we are sending emails doesn't mean they get opened and delivered and opened. How can we make sure that our message is getting through? So let's start with the basic question, why email? Well, number one, it's available to us. Everybody's got email and everybody reads their email. So that's a good place to start. But as you know, in the last 6 to 8 weeks, people have dramatically changed how they live and work. It's harder to get somebody on the phone because a lot of companies are not in their office right now. People are having their phones routed to their cell phone or a home number or something like that. So if you can get somebody on the phone, then it's great and you can have much more substantive conversations. But electronic means of communication have increased in exponential amounts over the last 8 weeks. So it's our responsibility is not to try and figure out what that means. It's our responsibility to take advantage of that so that we can alter our business to get in front of the people that we want to get in front of. Email has changed too. In the beginning, back in the dark ages of the internet, a time in my life I like to call college, what you would do is you would write out a message and then you would put 300 people in the to field. And what would happen then? Well, you'd get one person who would reply to all, and then all of a sudden that great work you had creating that one message was completely destroyed in an avalanche of reply all messages. So now there's a lot of different things that you can do to make sure that your message is presented nicely, it's brand specific, and it has an actionable item that is associated with it. That is to say, your opportunity to get somebody to take a specific action now is easier than ever when you do email and you do it well. Well, I wanted to include some statistics about this because it really is mind-boggling how much email gets passed back and forth. There are 1 billion people using Gmail on a regular basis. I am one of them. I am in and out of there at least 100 times a day. They have 4.3 billion email accounts. That's just with Google. We're not talking about vanity emails. We're not talking about Yahoo or anything, or Hotmail or anything like that, just on Google. 91% of those consumers report that they check their email at least once a day. And 86% of professional people prefer email to calling or texting. And here's the fun number at the bottom there. For every dollar you spend on email marketing, the return on investment is great. The book will tell you that it's $43 in return on investment. So the cost to get in is very inexpensive, and the potential upside is absolutely fantastic when it comes to email. And here's the fun part. 66% of those people are now opening their email on a mobile device, which means that not only do we have to create a great message, we also have to have it be device agnostic. It means it has to look just as good as on an iPhone 6 as it does on an iPhone 11 or on a other device or an iPad or something like that. So people are opening, it's in the palm of their hands. We literally have an opportunity to hit them where they are frequently and early and often. The good thing about email is that it helps bridge the gap between the buyer's journey. And I'm going to get into this a little bit more later, but the idea of people going from being a stranger and not knowing you to having become a customer and starting to promote your business on a regular basis because they've had great experiences with you. Email fills in the blanks of all those things between how a stranger becomes a lead, how a lead becomes a customer, and how a customer becomes a promoter. The interesting thing is all of those different things, leads, customers, and promoters, all of them have different needs and all of them have different content requirements. And all of which, if you do email marketing correctly and do it well, you'll be able to provide people the right kind of message that they need when they need it, which will make them feel good about continuing to work with you. So that's the numbers-based case, but really the next question should be, why do we send email? Especially right now, I literally posted on my social accounts this morning how almost everybody's COVID-19 message is basically the same now, and people are starting to tune it out. And people, you're getting all these messages that says, we're here for you, we're listening, all that, and people aren't reading them anymore because everybody's saying the same thing. So the question becomes, why should we continue to send email? It's because there are three definitive pillars of the value of email marketing that we can take advantage of to our benefit. Number one is versatility. Number two is personalization. Number three is lead nurturing. I'm going to break all three of these down in detail. So what do I mean when I say versatility? When I'm talking about that, does that mean that they could play third base or left field? Well, no, not necessarily. It means there's a lot of different kinds of emails that you can have. So in this particular instance, there's the senior housing one that I put on there, but there's all sorts of different kinds of emails: welcome emails, automated emails, form follows up, reminders, notifications, thank yous, newsletters. There's any number of different ways in which you can provide somebody the opportunity to consume content. But the most important one that I want you to think about today, and one that we try and strive for at BizzyWeb, is creating a delightful email. And a delightful email is something that creates a great individual experience for that individual customer to enhance their relationship with their brand. So that's a theme that I want you to think about, not only as we do our work here together, but as you leave, how can you create a great individual experience for your customers? And some of that might mean getting away from providing the same carpeted information that everybody provides and getting into more specific information. Some of it means you might want to include some personalization. So how do we create a delightful email? Part of that is creating some personalization and showing that you're not sending a mass email, even though you really truly are. So when you send emails with a personalized message, they generally have a higher percentage of open rate. It's about 17.5%, which, as you're talking about sending emails in the hundreds and thousands, 17% might seem like a low number, but it'll actually add to a fairly aggressive response rate in terms of how you get those people to open it. If you're not doing that, then it just kind of goes into spam. I've gotten to the point now where if somebody, you can tell that somebody's trying to do email marketing or trying to do automated marketing. So if you get the dear and then the comma, it's because they didn't even fill out the form correctly, or their email didn't pull my information correctly from their CRM. So it's just poor, and I have the ability to just get rid of it. I don't have to interact with it. I don't have to do anything with it. Generally, when I open an email, I'm asking one of three questions. I'm asking, is this something I have to deal with now? Is it something that I can deal with later, or do I not have to deal with it at all? Personalization is not, however, just putting the first name in an email. And that's a good start. That's great. But some of the other ways in which you could do that is by doing things like an upcoming anniversary of your product or product or service, or sending them an item that's something similar to they've purchased. So for instance, if you made, let's say you made custom fishing rods, for instance, and you made somebody a rod to catch walleye. Walleye is a fish that's popular up here in the upper Midwest. So one of the things that you could do is say, hey, we're also making rods for bass, which have different qualities, and it's something you might be interested in. And that, again, re-engages them and is delightful because it's something similar to something they've purchased already. You can also do personalized subject lines that catch the eye, something fun or something interesting. Typically what I like to do as a rule of thumb is say, there's a 2-2-2 rule. So I say for the first two words in a subject line need to be actionable. We need to ask somebody to do something, and I want them to get to do something today. So it's a little punny, I apologize, but yeah, the first two words in the email subject line are getting something to do, doing something today. That doesn't mean only do two words in your subject line. Just makes the first two words as actionable as possible. So personalization gives us a great opportunity to really show people that we have listened and that we are listening to what they need. The reason we do that is something called lead nurturing. So not everybody's going to be a customer right away. Not everybody's going to pick up the phone and say, yep, I would like to buy something from you today. And so what your goal as a marketer and as a salesperson is to help nurture them until they get to that point. Might be just a couple of days, or it might be weeks or months. And that's what lead nurturing is. What does that mean by that? Well, it really just means something to help grow the relationship and establish a certain amount of trust in that, A, that you're an expert, and B, that you can solve whatever problem that they have to solve. So specifically though, lead generation, it's a marketing effort focused on engaging with your leads and customers in a way that progresses them towards a specific action. Now, I highlighted specific action there because it's an important characteristic, because within a sales process and in a buying journey that you are asking somebody to take, you will ask them to take specific actions on a regular basis, and you will have them take many specific actions in order to lead them to a large specific action. And usually the last one is an exchange of money for goods or services. So when we're talking about an email, a specific action might be something as simple as click here, or look at the schedule, or find a time that we can work together. So specific actions can be very, very small or very, very big. There is value in doing this, and there is value as we're sort of reverse engineering our way towards getting you to a big sale. There's the value in nurturing your leads produce a 20% more increase in sales and opportunities. The reason is people want to try something out and they want to understand how you are different. And that's what in marketing is what's known as the differentiating value proposition. If I'm trying to buy a house from a realtor, I can buy a house from any number of realtors that are in my database, but I'm going to go to a very specific one because I want to have a very specific experience in working with that person. And that's primarily because of the value proposition that they offer me. When I sold a home recently, I was bonkers, and I was terrible to deal with. And the realtor that I chose to work with had a lot of care and feeding of Trigby that he had to do in order to get the sale. And it worked, but I chose him for that reason because I knew that I would be able to listen to him when he spoke and truly take it into take his advice and his counsel into heart. So that's an experience that I've had, and I've since become a promoter of him. And anytime somebody asks me for a name of a good realtor, I give him that because he helped nurture me along towards the sale. So let's talk about this again. What are we really getting into, and what we say, what is a lead nurturing campaign? It starts with marketing automation. And so what marketing automation is it's a software program and there are a number of different software programs that can do this in varying degrees of success, that automates your marketing for you. So it's designed to help prioritize, and it's also helped to execute on campaigns in a way that you can leverage a database of information into creating personalized, better experience emails and help you create tasks in a more efficient way. But in order to create these great lead nurturing campaigns, in order to lead to more sales, you really need to determine why you are creating campaigns. What about your personal buyer's journey has to change in order to help you make more sales? The reason is, I have a quote here from the great Simon Sinek, is people don't often buy what you do. I mean, yes, there's an argument to be had for the economics of widgets, but they buy why you do it and why it's important to you. Because oftentimes, I know in my personal experience, I'm always looking for ways in which I can see a certain amount of passion and a certain amount of expertise. I don't want somebody who's just going to try and get me in and get me out. I mean, I can do that, but if I do, that's a commoditized purchase where I don't need to have a deep relationship with the gas station where I get a Diet Coke after I pick up 10 gallons of gas. But if I have a larger purchase or a more impactful purchase, I want to have a deeper relationship and understanding of the why. So when you're defining your why, you need to ask yourself the question of, what is the specific action you want your audience to take? Is it something as simple as going to your website, scheduling a meeting, or something more in depth of reading more and becoming more educated? So once you understand what that why is, you'll actually be able to help create a campaign that will help you automate the marketing and actually close more educated buyers. So because you're doing these things that I have listed on the screen here, you're offering value, you're understanding the objective and goals, and you're helping your customers evaluate and optimize what their success is. So the 3 pillars of emails, we talked about this before. Number 1 is versatility. Number 2 is personalization. Number 3 is lead nurturing. So let's get into the real nuts and bolts of why we're here today, which is, how do we develop an inbound email strategy? I'm going to take a moment to pause here, and if you're listening to me live and you have a question, feel free and add it to the chat pane, and I'll answer it now while I take a quick pause and have a sip of water. Well, so far no questions, so I guess that means I'm hitting everything on all the right cylinders. One of the questions that I think you should be asking is, how easy is this to do, and can I do this at home, and can I do this on my own? The answer is yes. Everything that we're going to be talking about today, with the assistance of some value-add softwares, things like Constant Contact, things like HubSpot, those are things, software programs that you don't necessarily have to need, but they do make your life easier as you do it. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions yet, so that's great. Feel free and add them to the chat pane if you have them. Oh, great. We do have one question before I move on, which is, Martin says, how do you make sure that people can feel confident to open an attachment? Thanks, Martin. That's a great question. So what I would do, if you have an attachment that you're sending out to a massive amount of people, what I typically do is I use a third-party software, something like HubSpot, where I can have them click on something and that it takes them to an independent page with that content on there. So it might be just a page, it might be some educational things, might be a marketing things, but make sure that I do it that way because I want to be able to track who's opening the attachment. The other way that you could do that is just by making reference to it in the email and making sure that the type of file you're asking people to open is fairly consistent. So if you're sending somebody a document that you want them to sign or you want them to review, make sure it's something that they can easily understand, like a PDF. So thanks for the question, Martin. So, okay, so how do we develop an inbound email strategy and how do we make it great? How do we send strategic email that truly delights our prospect base? So sending a great email is all about the cats. And I have to admit, I am one of those people that is just an absolute sucker for a cute cat video. Anybody who knows me will tell you that if you have a store cat, I will go out of my way to shop there. I have a 12-pound dog. I travel past 3 different pet food store places because I go to a place that has store cats just because I love store cats more than anything. But in this case, what do I mean by cats? What is it? How is it relevant to you other than you can roll your eyes and say, oh my gosh, Trinity actually likes cats? So it breaks down into 4 things. We want to present the right kind of content to the right audience. We want to do it at the right time, and we want to be able to have a measure of what exactly success means for us. So cats: content, audience, time, success. And there are 4 best practices that we use at BizzyWeb for creating a successful email. Is number 1, defining your audience. 2, segmenting the content database so that the right audience is getting the right message, not the entire audience. 3rd, decide on what content we want to send to people. And then 4th, how are we using email to nurture leads for our clients? So let's start with the first one, determining your audience. How do you determine what your audience really is? And how do you determine what is the right kind of audience? Well, the best way that I can recommend you do this, and this is something that we do all the time here at BizzyWeb, is create a buyer's persona and a buyer's journey. What are these things? What are these 2 things? A buyer persona is it's a fictional representation, well, not fully fictional, semi-fictional representation of what a great customer is for you based on qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis. So what are the kinds of customers that you enjoy working with the most, that are the most profitable for you? What you do then is that if you look at those types of people, you should start to have some patterns develop where you are seeing the right kind of people in the right kind of places, and how you can then duplicate those people by marketing to those similarities. What is a buyer's journey? Well, that is the process that people go through as they are starting from I don't know you to I would like to purchase from you. It's the active process and the research process people go through leading up to making a purchase. And what we've found is that even in the business-to-business world these days, there is an Amazon effect where people are not going to buy unless they feel educated and ready. And that's where the inbound marketing comes into play. We want to provide people with the right kind of information that shows that we have expertise in solving a problem and we have the ability to solve their problem. And that's where, that's where the inbound comes into play. But the buyer's journey breaks down into a couple of different stages. Number 1 is the awareness stage, where people truly come to grips with the idea that I have a problem that needs solving. Maybe I want to sell my house. Maybe I'm not catching enough fish. Maybe I need better marketing efforts. Okay, great. I have a problem. Then the next consideration is, what do I do about it? What are my options for solving my problem? And a lot of these first 2 involve a fair amount of internet research and a fair amount of reading that we find that people are doing even in the business-to-business world now, because they want to maximize their ability to make the right buying decision for them. The third stage is generally where people pick up the phone and call or talk to a salesperson. They've already made a decision that you can solve the that A, they have a problem, and B, you are in a position to solve it. Now, the salesperson's job is to reassure those first two decisions that the client has already made, and then the third is to help come to terms in a way that's equitable for both parties. So there's a lot more that goes into that and these things, and we offer a couple of different webinars that go into this a lot more detail. I'm not going to go into as much of this detail today, but if you're interested, I will have my contact information available after the show today, and I'll be happy to talk to you a little bit more about this. Oops. So we've determined what our audience is based on our buyer persona and our buyer's journey. Now what we want to do is take our contact database and actually segment those people into a bucket. So if we're putting the right people in the bucket, we want to make sure that they're the right people to get the right audience, that they're the right audience. And when you segment a campaign, you're going to get a better response rate. Generally speaking, successful segmented campaigns get almost 10% less unsubscribed than non-segmented campaigns. So that's because you're providing the right information to the right people, and it's actually information that they're interested in. So when I say segmentation, what do I mean? It means breaking that audience into groups of like-minded people. So all those people that meet those specific criteria to be a potential good fit buyer that meet your buyer persona, you want to put those in. So when you look at a picture like this, you'd want to say, okay, if I have orange fabric and I'm selling orange fabric, of the people that you see in the screen here, of the people that you see in the screen here, who are the right people to fit? Well, you want to find the people who look like this because they're really interested in buying orange fabric. But how do you do that when you're looking at this? The way you do that is by helping to figure out where the sweet spot is between content and context, and also by making sure that your marketing and sales efforts are working in lockstep. So I work in business development at BizzyWeb. There's a whole different department at BizzyWeb that works in marketing. Every time that we gather information about a prospect or a client, we should be adding it into a common database so that we know when we go back out to market to those people, we know what they're interested in and why they're interested in it. Some of the different types of segmentation that you can get, I have on the screen here. It might be company related, might be based on size or type or industry, might be role related, depending upon are you entry level, are you a manager, are you a C-level, or is it behavior related? Well, you've come to my website, you've filled out a form, you've opened an email, you've looked at a specific amount of pages. There's a whole rainbow of different segmentation opportunities that you have, but it all is critical on having the right kind of data and providing and making sure that your data is accurate. Okay, so the third thing, best practice in creating a successful email is deciding on what content. So we figured out the right people that we want to talk to. We've gone through our contact database and we've called those people off in one specific group. Now we have to figure out what exactly do we say. So that's the next operative question here is, how do we create content for email? And how do we make it so it's actually helpful? So there's an AIDA model that we like to follow. So and this is based, if you're familiar with the AIDA model, it's pretty famously done by Alec Baldwin in the David Mamet play, Glengarry Glen Ross. So A is attention. How do we grab somebody's attention and get them to stop what they're doing and look at one specific thing? We are all inundated by a tremendous amount of noise in our daily life, and we are all inundated by people who are trying to market to us. So being able to grab attention is absolutely critical in actually getting people to look at the relevant content. And that's the second point, is interest. How do we figure out what the relevant content is? Well, if we've done our jobs right in the first two best practices, we know who we're talking to, we know what their interests are, so we're able to write relevant content to them. Third is desire. How do we provide them with a value proposition that gets them to a point where they're wanting to interact with us? How do we get those people to take even a small step forward to show that they might have a problem that we could solve? They might be in a position where they don't even know that they have a problem that they need solved, but we still want to try and encourage them to look at our differentiating value and realize that we could solve in some way. And finally is action. So that's what I have there when I say, yep, I'm ready to go. That's not always always the case. Sometimes it's a smaller call to action, something as simple as read more. That's a call to action that you see in an email a whole lot. Or click here. That's a call to action. And when you're doing that, you're asking people a question. Please take this journey with me, even as smaller as an infinitesimal as clicking on a button. Once you get people to do that one thing, then you can start asking for bigger and bigger things. So again, AIDA. And if you're interested, or if you haven't seen the Alec Baldwin speech, please see me after class, because I probably can quote it from memory. So when we're getting into this in a little more detail, when we're trying to get somebody's attention, we're saying, well, what do we want their attention for? Well, ostensibly, we have something that we're trying to sell or promote or do something, and we're doing that through the email. So we've defined what their goal is. So when we're creating a subject line, we are trying to get them to have a goal in mind that aligns with what we are trying to offer. And maybe that's not them, maybe it's somebody else, but it's a goal that we can actually help them solve. And so that subject line is absolutely critical in writing subject lines, writing a good email, excuse me. So one of the questions that I commonly get asked is, how much is too long? How many words is too many words in a subject line? I would say that the best subject lines that I've ever seen, if you can get it down to 3 words, that's great. But more realistically, 6 to 10 words, not more than that. It's also critical to make sure that when you're sending out an email, especially with subject lines, is that you send it to a mobile device first. One of the biggest disasters I've ever had in my career is I had a client, I created an email for a client that he decided to email later, and so it changed before he sent it out, which was disastrous when it came to what it looked like on a mobile device. So make sure that when things get truncated, you aren't saying something that you don't want to have it say. So when you're defining a goal, you want this to be 5 different things, and it's a SMART goal setting. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, this is a great slide to take a screenshot of, or if you're interested in getting the deck after, I can provide that to you. So a SMART goal setting does 5 things. It's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant, and it's timely. So if you can read your email that you've made and say, am I answering all these questions? Then you're probably pretty good to move forward. But if not, then it's perhaps time to reevaluate. So when you're creating that subject line, again, you want to do a couple of different things. You want to create a sense of urgency, a sense of curiosity. One of the things that you can do is create a specific offer. If you can make it personalized, that's great. If you can have some name recognition so they remember who you are, that's great too, but also make it sort of timely. So if you're talking about a specific seasonal thing, then make sure that you're sending it well in advance of when the season is, when people are still making their buying decisions. So when we're trying to create interest, that's our second AIDA, is creating relevance. And so what do I mean by relevance? It's that middle of that square, of that Punnett square there, where we're talking about the overlap, Venn diagram. I don't know why I said Punnett square. The Venn diagram there of the overlap of what your prospects are interested in and what you want them to say. So I have the definition there, but really what relevance is where those 2 things meet. So how do you create relevancy? Well, might want to segment your contacts a little deeper, even within that bucket. Maybe you want to create sub buckets around a specific goal or maybe a specific kind of goal in an email send. So if you are trying to get people to sell their homes, well, that's great. Putting sellers into a bucket is great, but maybe you want to sell in just one city and you want to target people to sell in just one city. Well, that's great. You can then segment deeper and then provide relevant content to that specific segment. So I did have somebody ask to see the Venn diagram again. Thank you for not making fun of me for calling it a Punnett square. And here it is. So the overlap of what you want to say and what they're interested in, that's what the relevance is. A lot of times what we find is people who only focus on the what you want to say category and not enough on what your customers are interested in. All right, so we've done the A, we've done the I, let's do the D, the desire. So emails should add value. It shouldn't ask for value. So that's the golden rule of an email is if I'm reading an email, am I better off for it or is it a waste of my time? And here are some of the questions that you should ask before sending an email. Will they want to take the action on your email? Why do they want to do it? Not just will they, why do they do it? Why will they love having this piece of information? And how does it help them find success? These are big, heady questions that you might think are over the top for a simple email, but this is what I want you to start thinking of when you're talking about campaigns, is how do we create that kind of delight where people are always happy to hear from us, and anytime our company name or our personal name shows up in an email box, we're going to be the email that clicks first. That's because we're going to try and create a higher sense of desire. Finally, the action is that call to action. So I've got one on screen here for HubSpot where start your free trial, no credit cards, no loopholes, blah, blah, blah. There's a call to action there, and it's very simple. It's to click that button. Sign up is actually copy in marketing speak. The call to action is that button on the whole. There's words there. The color is different. There's the chevron pointing right to it. All of those things are telling you exactly what the action you want people to take, because it's a couple of different things. It's visually striking, it's short, it's action oriented, and it's easy to understand. So when we send emails, we don't want to just educate people for the sake of educating them, because we're asking for time when we send those to them. What we want to do is provide not only when we're asking for time, we want to provide value in response and create some sort of forward momentum for us. So, all right, so we've decided on what content we're writing. We have the AIDA model. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use emails to nurture leads effectively. So again, I mentioned this earlier, but lead nurturing emails generate about an 8% click-through rate. That's because we've already started working with these people. We're providing good value. We're providing timely value. And you can see there's a big difference between a value proposition at 8% versus 3%, which is what a general click-through rate is. So a lot more people, when you're nurturing your leads, are going to be opening and clicking through emails. So one of the things that you can do in order to do that is create lead nurturing workflows. And that's sort of a decision tree of if-then statements based on people's behaviors. And so a couple of different kinds of lead nurturing that you can have are, potentially provide a free trial for a service that you offer, a welcome workflow where you're providing them information and you're validating the business decision that they made, or if they are a re-engagement, somebody who's fallen off the case and you haven't talked to them in a while. Well, let's create a workflow that can help lead them back to becoming a new prospect again. So I wanted to give you some examples of what that might actually look like. So a free trial workflow, for instance, is, let's say, okay, we're going to start with somebody who has activated the free trial. So if we have free trial on our website, great. Once somebody's taken that action, then what we do is we create a series of emails that get sent maybe once, twice, 3 times a week that have things like help documents, blog posts, user guides, some testimonials about taking the next step, some success stories. And then finally, okay, now that you're getting to the end of your free trial, here's an offer that will make it enticable and actionable for you to take the next step and sign up. A welcome workflow is great, and it's something that we are very, very good at BizzyWeb, is creating, if somebody has enrolled for a specific reason, so they become a customer, they've filled out a form, something like that, we're going to send them introductory emails based on what product or service they have interest in. And if we get to a point where we know that they're reading the emails based on a couple of things that we've got set up, then we can schedule them for a demo, or one of our sales team will pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, is it time that we have a further discussion? So contact re-engagement is great because everybody has a bunch of names in their database that are growing colder every single day. So this is an example of what a contact re-engagement might look like. So number one is we put them in through the free trial workflow, but we didn't get a purchase. Well, okay. The next step is maybe sending them several sets of emails. So we remind them what the free trial is for. We encourage feedback on their experience. How did you like it? Good, bad, not so good? What didn't you like? Third is we want to discuss benefits, not features. When people are looking at us, we want to make sure that we're talking about what the value that we give them, not what the thing itself is. Fourth, another offer on another trial period with a demo. In order to do that, they'd have to meet with a sales rep. So, and then if they don't hit the workflow, okay, great, we'll put them on a list for a rainy day and maybe contact them again. So you can see there, just in this contact re-engagement workflow, there are 6 different points where we touch them, of which 5 of them are email, in which we are not actually doing much of the work. We've set up the work to do it. We've included personalization based on their behaviors and based on their activities in order to make them feel a little bit more comfortable in taking the next step. But the good news is I don't have to send those out because I've got a system that runs it for me based on my clients and my prospects' behavior. Okay, so once again, the 4 best practices for creating successful emails. Number 1, we've determined our audience. Second, we've segmented our contact database. Third, decided on really good content. And fourth, we've used emails to nurture leads. The last thing I want to talk about today is email deliverability, because all this sounds really great, but if nobody actually opens it or reads it, are we actually creating any sort of success? Are we delivering on our promise to get some sort of results? So email deliverability is it's a fancy marketing term that means how successful we are at getting marketing emails into people's email boxes. So I talked earlier about the multiple different kinds of email boxes that people have. There are a ton of them, and which means that there are a ton of IT people who are supporting them. So, and they all have different opinions on what's a valid email and what's not. So really what we want to do is we want to evaluate whether or not we're successful. So if we sent a rocket to the moon, we wouldn't know what happened to it if we couldn't analyze the results. So that's why email delivery is important. We want to know, how could we get better at this? If we send something up into space, did it achieve what we wanted, or did it go somewhere else? And this sounds a little scary. It's really not. It really does help you in all parts of your email strategy. So really what we're trying to determine here is trust. The goal is not to send a large amount of email out to a large people. We want to send a small amount of email to an engaged list that trusts and cares about your intentions and understands that you are who you say you are and you have a high degree of integrity. So we talked about the 3 pillars of deliverability again. Now we want to get into the 3 pillars of email deliverability. There's 3 different points: sources, permissions, and expectations. Let's talk about sources. So first of all, what's a lead source? What can you buy email lists, and can you get them from just about anywhere? Well, yes, you really shouldn't, but a good lead source is it's a primary source that a lead found your website through. So if you get somebody's email, where did it come from? Well, it could come from any number of different sources. It could have come from an offline source, organic search, email marketing, social media. It could have come from a referral, whole lot of different kind of places. So you want to make sure that you have that segmented out so that you know the best value proposition when it comes to growing your list. So if your best source of leads comes from referrals, well, that's where you should be focusing a lot of your marketing effort on. But you're not going to know that unless you track it. Second is permissions. All of those emails that you've gotten from that Nigerian prince who would, if you just give him your banking information, he will turn around and give you 10 times the amount of money you need. Those are not good guys. Those are technically illegal emails. Permission-based email marketing, those are the good guys, the people who are getting the right type of permission. You do have to have permission to email somebody, not just in to try and promote a business. You really need to have a certain level of permission to do that. So how do you earn that permission, and how do you keep that permission? How do you earn trust? Well, collect email addresses the right way. For one, make sure that you're not buying lists. People say all the time, well, Trigvi, why shouldn't I buy a list? It's because nobody's going to open an email if they don't know who it's from. And then you get into the issue that Martin talked about earlier, which is how do you get them to open an attachment? Well, if they don't know who you are. So second, if you have a sign-up point, be straightforward. Tell people how much you're going to email them and when you're going to email them, and don't deviate from that, and don't sell your list. Give people the option to opt out. Generally, the legality of that is that you do have to have a independent unsubscribe button, meaning if you don't want my emails anymore, you can click a button and you won't get them anymore. Fourth, clean your contact database. If nobody's talking to you and nobody's opening your emails, don't send them email anymore. There's no point. And then once again, do not purchase emails or rented lists. It's not going to do anything. So in the 3 pillars of email deliverability, the third one is expectations. And the question is, do people on your list, except for you, expect then you to email them? And if the answer is no, then you need to make sure that you are the person who's emailing them, because you never get a second chance to get a first impression. If I meet you at a networking event and we have a good conversation and I say to you, hey, Don, I think that you could benefit from getting my newsletter. Is it okay if I put you on my email list? If your answer is no, then I can't email you. But if your answer is yes, that's great. And then the email needs to come from Trigvi@BizzyWeb. It shouldn't be coming from info@BizzyWeb or some other person, because Don doesn't know who that is. It needs to be from the real person in order to continue developing that relationship. So again, 3 pillars of email deliverability: source, permission, and expectation. So as we're trying to determine whether or not we're successful or not, and we do have a number of webinars that get into this in an incredible amount of detail about how to analyze your success more in depth. But we really want to start with, are we actually getting our messages in people's email box? And the way we do that is we look at 2 specific numbers. We look at the engagement metrics, how many people are opening it, how many people are clicking through, and second, the contact churn date metrics. So who are the people who are unsubscribing, maybe have left their job, maybe aren't there anymore. So when we're talking about an engagement metric, that's basically a click, and that's it's proof that your email was successful. Your email motivated your recipient to actually do something, and hopefully it was the thing that you wanted them to do. So that's a great way to determine the overall success of the email. And content churn is really if you're gonna not have somebody who wants to interact with you anymore, unsubscribe is absolutely the best way for it to go down. You don't want it to get weird, or you don't want them to pick up the phone or email you a nasty note. If they just click the button, that's great. Let them go. Okay, so what happens on your next send? I'd encourage you to take the time to analyze your email statistics. from your last email? How many people opened it? How many people clicked through to an action that you wanted them to take? Did you ask them to take an action? If not, that's a wasted opportunity. If you didn't get a lot, then that's an opportunity for improvement. So when you're trying to optimize your next email send, really what you're wanting to do is consistently grow to a specific point. So when you're sending people information, what do you want them to do with it? And are they doing what you want them to do with it? The easiest way to do that is create an A/B test. And that's something that you can get in a number of different email marketing programs. Our preference is HubSpot, but you can also use Constant Contact or something like MailChimp as well. So it helps you create 2 different versions for your email and then send to different parts of your list, and you can test which one is more successful than the other. It's a simple concept, but it involves breaking down a little bit farther. So what are the things that you want to test? Well, you want to figure out when is the most optimal time for your list to send an email. So things like number of emails, what time of day did you send, what day of the week did you send? You maybe want to change the subject line a little. And then did they actually take the action you want them to take? So the email body, the design, the layout, all these things that you can change and alter a little in order to test what is going to be the most successful. So once you figure out what's the most successful, then continue to do that and do that over and over and over again. There are friction points when it comes to email, so you want to figure out what your friction point are. So in this particular instance, let's say I sent out 9,500 emails and they all got delivered. Well, a good open rate is generally about 20%, but let's say I got a 10% open rate and got 950 opens. Well, okay, so that's not great, and that can be improved upon. But of that, 50 people actually took the action I wanted them to take. And then of those 50, then the conversion rate was pretty high. So what you want to do is figure out what is the measure of success for you on each of those different standards, and are you pushing people through a funnel to actually get them to turn into a customer, provide you with some sort of value in the relationship as well. So in this particular case, the click to conversion rate is high, which is great, but the amount of email that we're sending out in order to get that is pretty low. So this tells me, as a trained email expert, that we're sending out too many emails and we're not segmenting enough to the right people. And then you want to review the results. Again, that A/B testing allows us to figure out which is the best side by side and then continue to do that. So I went through a monster amount of slides today. Thank you all for the good questions. And thank you for hopefully politely chuckling or rolling your eyes in any of my jokes today. I am going to provide you with a bit of a gift for sticking with me, which is the Beginner's Guide to Inbound Marketing, and something we have here at BizzyWeb. So there's going to be a link to it that you should receive later this afternoon, as well as a thank you from me. There'll be some good tips and tricks that go along with that as well. If you're interested in our next webinar, it is going to be how to lose a client in 10 clicks. Excuse me. We have an entire movie-themed webinar series all year long, which is just been a lot of fun to do and a lot of fun to create. So the next one is inbound marketing mistakes. You'll learn about the top 10 mistakes people make, how you can use inbound most effectively, and how you can most importantly avoid making those mistakes. That's going to be on June 3rd at 12 o'clock. The easiest way to find that is go to BizzyWeb.com/events. And I believe I'll be doing that. So hopefully you enjoyed this and you'll come to the next one as well. So here's my contact information. My email is just trigby@BizzyWeb.com. But if you want a copy of this deck, please just let me know. Or if you want a copy of the recording, it should be posted, I think, to YouTube later today. But would love to engage with you if there's ways we can help. Be more than happy if you have more information that you'd like. I'd be more than happy to help. Just feel free and reach out to me. And look at that gorgeous pre-COVID hair. It's so short. Man, I wish my hair were that short now. So Thanks again. I will hang out. That's our show for today. I will hang out for a minute or two if you have questions that you'd like me to answer. Otherwise, you can feel free and reach out to me after the fact. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for staying with us, and we'll see you next time.